On May 24th, after a 10-month investigation, I released a report on the rise in ransomware attacks and the use of cryptocurrency as ransom payments in these attacks. That report I entered into the record in my opening comments. One of my report's key findings is that the federal government simply does not have comprehensive data on ransomware threat landscape. So, Ms. Stiefel, I have two questions for you. First off, do you agree with this finding? And second, in the Institute for Security and Technology's Ransomware Task Force report, your organization advocates for mandatory reporting requirements on ransomware attack payments made in cryptocurrency. Why do you believe that this data is necessary? If you could answer both those questions, I'd appreciate it.
Senator, I do agree with the observation that, or the finding that there is not sufficient information within the government's holdings about payments in cryptocurrencies. We know, as has been highlighted in the testimony of Ms. Coven, as well as Mr. Siegel, that there are many who do, attempt to comply with these requirements and regulations. However, there are also those who do not. And this leads to a significant amount of discrepancy in the amount of information that may be available to those in the ecosystem versus those who are receiving the information on the government side. The other challenge here is that within the organizations that do collect information on the government side, whether it be FinCEN, the CISA, or IC3, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, they ask for different types of information, which also contributes to a disaggregated picture of the threat. With regard to your second question, Senator, we believe that the mandatory reporting requirement will help the government have a better picture of the actual scale and scope of this threat. We also believe that information needs to get into the hands of the private sector, who, as I mentioned in my testimony, can work with the government to collectively combat these actors when the information is delivered in a timely manner and it is relevant. I do agree significantly with Mr. Siegel's comment that we need to be very structured in the way that the government needs to be very structured in the way that it seeks the information that it will receive under the reporting requirements of the recently passed legislation. It is critical that the information be relevant and that the government is equipped to manage the information, not only in analyzing it itself, but also in ensuring that it can receive and disseminate the information to private sector actors who can appropriately manage the information and take appropriate action with respect to it.
Thank you. During my investigation, federal agencies expressed to my team concerns with gaps in the ability to enforce anti-money laundering laws applicable to cryptocurrency against illicit actors outside of the United States. The report found that such gaps impede law enforcement's ability to investigate, to prosecute, and prevent cryptocurrency-enabled crimes. Ms. Coven, and then Ms. Stiefel, I'll ask you to answer this question after Ms. Coven answers. What shortfalls do you see regarding enforcement of anti-money laundering regulations with respect to illicit cryptocurrency transactions, both in the United States and abroad? And the second question, what has happened to address these shortfalls, and can regulations alone solve this problem, or does Congress have a role here? If you could handle those questions for me now, and then Ms. Stiefel after Ms. Coven.
Thank you for your question, Senator. And yes, we have observed a winnowing down of the cash-out destinations for illicit actors, including ransomware actors, mainly to offshore exchanges with little to no regulation and enforcement, which underscores our recommendation for enhanced U.S. assistance in implementing AML, anti-money laundering laws, to cut off those illicit cash-out destinations. We've also observed the increased utilization of mixing services by these threat actors to obfuscate the destination of these ransomware proceeds. And I can point to a number of government successes over the last year that have actually used blockchain analysis to trace payments to these high-risk exchanges, and law enforcement action against Garantex, Blender.io, ChatX, and SueX, primarily services based in Russia. And what we saw as a result of these designations, especially against SueX, was that deposits dropped nearly to zero as soon as the designations were rolled out. And so there are a number of policy options for these illicit cash-out destinations. And blockchain forensics is a key tool in being able to identify where these threat actors are cashing out. And if we look at Blender.io, the mixing service in particular, it was not only used by multiple ransomware groups, it was also used by North Korean launderers from stolen funds. So these threat actors are going for the path of least resistance, but it has narrowed down considerably to a handful of services that the U.S. can help support with implementing AML regulations.
Thank you, Ms. Coven. Ms. Stiefel?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I would agree with Ms. Coven that the impact of regulation in the United States has resulted in many cases the offshoring of the ability for these actors to convert cryptocurrency into fiat, and as a result, the absence of regulation overseas has provided this pathway for the conversion to continue to facilitate the demand for and the desire for ransomware as a tool to generate financial gain. In other words, were we to have a more consistent regulatory environment internationally through the application of KYC, AML, and other regulatory measures by working with partners, including through the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, that has been effective in the terrorism instances, that would provide a pathway, I think, for there to be a more significant impact on the ability for governments to obtain information that can facilitate arrests or other disruptive measures against these criminal actors. Senator, you also asked about the role of Congress here, and I would agree that there is I think the reporting legislation is a significant step forward. It was something that was called for in our task force report, as you mentioned. I think there's also a need for an opportunity for Congress to continue to also clarify other measures that private sector entities may take with respect to information about cybersecurity incidents, including by clarifying the scope of the Cybersecurity and Information Sharing Act of 2015, and to be constantly mindful of the importance of there being harmony across and not overly complicating matters with respect to ongoing regulatory opportunities, looking to streamline the process to allow for consistency in application so that victims are clear where they need to report, what they need to report, and within what period of time, and also their role in ensuring that they are working to and equipping them to better maintain their systems in a more secure manner to reduce the likelihood of ransomware in the future.
Ms. Cove, you testified earlier that only, I think it's 0.15% of cryptocurrencies are used in illicit transactions. And yet, according to your report, in 2022 report, the illicit use of cryptocurrency has grown from 7.8 billion in 2020 to an all-time high of 14 billion in 2021. And the report explicitly acknowledges that such illicit activity, quote, represents a significant problem. Now, clearly, you have a very small percentage there, but I think the vast majority of all the transactions in crypto are people just speculating back and forth, kind of similar to the Dutch tulip mania as they bid the prices up. My question to you, though, is do we know the percentage of cryptocurrency that's actually used to buy a legitimate good or service? I don't think folks are going to Walmart or CVS, but are people actually using this to buy something? What percentage?
Thank you for that question, Senator. And yes, we had noted 0.14% of transactions last year had an illicit component to it, and the vast majority of transactions were legitimate. Trading, remittances, and viewing cryptocurrency as a store of value. I would say that
What percentage? What percentage are actually for products and goods?
I don't have that answer on hand. My team can get back to you, but I would say it's a near daily occurrence that a new business that you and I might frequent is offering cryptocurrency as a form of payment. While it's not certainly prolific, you can't pay your rent in cryptocurrency today. There are more and more businesses that are adopting cryptocurrency as a form of payment. And this is especially, and this is a global phenomenon. You can find more available in other jurisdictions. And what I will say is that, because it is more difficult to buy goods and services with cryptocurrency today, it's why individuals and even threat actors rely on cryptocurrency businesses like exchanges to convert their cryptocurrency to other forms of fiat like dollars and euros, which is a great intelligence lead for investigations.
Scott, I want to go back to the questions that I was asking related to transactions for goods and services. You said a lot of businesses now are starting to accept crypto. Do you have any numbers or any estimate as to what you're seeing in that area?
Senator, I apologize. I do not have those figures on hand, but we can get back to what I did want to say previously is that we'd seen a 500% increase in cryptocurrency transactions in the last year. And we've seen many institutional players getting involved in cryptocurrency and viewing it as an asset class. So this has accelerated the adoption of cryptocurrency for legitimate use cases. And as you pointed out, also an increase in the raw number of illicit transactions that we've been able to detect was 14 billion last year.
But I want to be clear, when you talk about all the transactions, these are investment transactions. They're not an increase of transactions of people actually going out and buying stuff. And maybe help me, if you're a business, you say you'll accept crypto to pay for a service. If you accept dollars, you know the dollar tomorrow will still be worth $1, and next week it's still going to be worth $1. But crypto, like yesterday, I think they dropped, many of the major cryptos dropped 9%, a 10% drop. That would be like the Dow Jones dropping 3,000 points in a day, which is a pretty huge drop. So if you're a business, you'll say, I'll sell you a product for crypto, but it may be worth 10% less tomorrow. I don't know what it'll be worth. It could be worth up, it could be greater, I guess, as well. But based on what we've seen recently, it's been falling because it is a highly speculative asset. What's the incentive for a business to take crypto as opposed to a dollar when they're trading for an actual service?
Thank you for that question, Senator. I'm possibly not best suited to answer that question in my current role, but what I will say is that many investors are in cryptocurrency for the long haul, and they've experienced dips and spikes in the ecosystem over the past few years. Same with threat actors. They're also dealing with cryptocurrency, viewing it as a long-term investment. But we can get back to you on specific numbers if you'd like, sir.
Yeah, I'd be just curious if you're going to track this. What it's clearly we all know it's a speculative asset that people are investing in, and it's highly volatile. We get that. But it is a medium of exchange, and most people think of a medium of exchange as that it's going to be fairly consistent worth. If you buy a good from me and you give me $1, I'll be able to buy $1 worth of another good somewhere else in the next day or two or whenever it may be, which is different than a speculative stock or investing in stock options or other kinds of speculative assets. They're different. But we do know that for a variety of reasons, as we've heard today, that criminals are very attracted to crypto, and that's a big part of what the currency is used in. The actual kind of goods or services transaction is illicit. It's criminals that use this currency. Although, in addition to speculators, it's criminals seems to be using crypto. So my question for Ms. Stiffel, are there some additional tools that could help the federal government recover cryptocurrency ransom payments that have already been made? What additional tools should we be thinking about?
Thank you, Senator. I think one of the biggest tools that can be made, and in part thanks to the work of this committee has been made, is investing both in the cyber funds and emergency authorities that have come through the legislation that's been passed, but also thinking about what we've talked about previously, is better equipping departments and agencies to manage the investigatory process that is required in order to follow the money through the blockchain. Those investments also would be useful to better equip departments and agencies to engage their international counterparts and to push for the broader application of KYC, AML, and other measures more broadly internationally, including, as I mentioned, through the Financial Action Task Force, but in other multilateral bodies where working with Europol, for example, or Interpol, more effective engagement can be made with counterparts in a range of countries where we know that cyber criminals are turning. For example, looking at Costa Rica, Peru, most recently, the United States is not the only country targeted with ransomware, and it's essential to really combat this at global scale that we have partners in a range of jurisdictions who are able to meaningfully engage with us as we seek to investigate these malicious activities.
Thank you. And Ms. Coven, last question here. If you could explain to the committee, talk a little bit more about unhosted wallets and what risk exists when crypto is transferred to unregulated peer-to-peer exchanges and unhosted wallets. What should we know about that?
Thank you for your question. If I may address the previous comment, I do want to say that cryptocurrency is a technology, and as long as technologies have existed, there's always been bad actors willing to exploit it. Yes, there is significant volatility in cryptocurrency, but there is the mechanism of stable coins which can hold value. We do see legitimate trading activity as well as cryptocurrencies used in remittances. And it is an opportunity for the U.S. to be a key predominant player in this financial ecosystem by harnessing this technology, and the applications that can be built on top of it provide tremendous opportunity and job growth for national security. What I want to say about private wallets, we do focus on identifying services, exchanges, darknet markets, ransom payments, but in the course of our investigations, we do sometimes come across private wallets belonging to a threat actor, which allows us to monitor that wallet and also understand that threat actor's spending habits, all the tools and services purchased by that threat actor, and also cash out destinations like peer-to-peer or cryptocurrency exchanges. And peer-to-peer services are also obliged to regulatory requirements, AML, CFT requirements that do require KYC and other forms of identification.